Are we
All right, I
live?
guess we're
Yeah,
not
we
doing
are.
this.
Shoot. Well, didn't do the intro,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, no intro.
well, welcome to the Juice Box Heroes podcast. I'm one of your hosts, PK. As always, we're joined by the Dubon Fan Club president, Chris. Bryles is in the building this evening, and tonight, guys, we got a special guest. Jimmy from Astros Future is joining us. Thank you, Jimmy, for joining. You can follow him on X at Astros Future. Jimmy, how things going, my friend?
Can't complain. I'm just ready for baseball season to get here. So nice to get some spring talk going. I know there's a lot going on right now with the Astros. So yeah, just ready to get some games going.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We got pitchers and catchers was last week. First game is on Saturday. First squad games on Saturday. I think we got some good topics to talk about tonight. Chris, Bryles, y'all got anything you want to add?
No, man. Like I said, super excited to have you on the show. And like I said, man, yeah, I'm just excited. Like I said, I'm kind of big in the minor leagues as well. I mean, probably not at the level that you're quite at, but like I said, I'm excited. Like this is me kind of nerding out. So I'll go ahead and hand the floor over to Bryles.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too, man. It's the minor league part is something that I always want to learn a little bit more about, and it's always changing. I mean, throughout the season, and of course, right now, spring training. It's like who's going to get kicked out of spring training and go down to the minor spring training and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited to hear what we've got coming up, and super excited to have you on, Jimmy. Thanks, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So let's jump right into this thing, man. So look, full disclosure, Jimmy, some of what I'm about to say. And I was going to tell Chris about it, but I said, you know what? I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for the episode. So some things I'm about to tell you, they might sound a little bit familiar, and let's just go from there. So let's start with Kevin Alvarez. Okay. Big international day signing for the Astros, signed $2 million signing bonus. Was considered one of the best hitters in the 25 international class. He projects to have above average power. Great athlete, excels with arm and defense. What I found interesting was his comp was to Kyle Tucker and a younger Paul O'Neill. The Paul O'Neill one when I think of Paul O'Neill, obviously you think about the Yankees, but the first thing that popped in my head when I saw a younger Paul O'Neill was him kicking the ball from right field to first base when he was with the Reds. That was like the first thing that popped in. But yeah, 6'4", 184, 17 years old, bats left, throws left. So what's funny about this is as I'm writing all this stuff down, I'm scrolling down to the bottom of it. Didn't even realize I was on your freaking page. Okay. Did not even realize I was on your page. So of course, I subscribed to your page, your email. But yeah, man, what are your first thoughts on Kevin Alvarez? Man, look, when I saw his swing in the video, I think I reposted that a couple of times because it just looks stupid smooth. It looks, I'm a lefty, so like I love watching lefties hit, man. It's just a pretty swing. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on him and what kind of expectations can we have for him?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the more hyped international signings they've had in a little while. I know they Pedro Leon a few years ago, but he was a little bit older of a prospect. But to get a guy like Alvarez, and the reports on him is he was the best, probably the best bat that was available. And there's one thing that to me really stands out is a lot of guys come with raw power, and maybe it doesn't translate because they can't put the bat to the ball, struggle with on base, whatever it is. But when you hear what the scouts had to say about him and about his elite level hitting, not just power, but being able to spray it all over the field and everything, like that's something that I think can translate. I don't want to say easily, but we've seen plenty of international guys come over that have this big time power and then they struggle to make contact. And Alvarez feels like he's going to be a different level of prospect. So to get a guy like that in the system, in a system that really needs
Mm-hmm.
that influx of really young, low-level talent, that's a huge get for the Astros, and super excited for him. Hopefully they get him over stateside pretty quick. Maybe even this year get him in the FCL, but he could definitely be a quick riser in the system.
So let's see. So he's 17. I mean, what are we looking at roughly? Let's just say expecting to see him. What are you saying? 4 years, 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say Dana Brown has been like extremely aggressive promoting prospects. I mean, he drafted Pascal Ferreras, who was the last pick in the 23 draft, and he was all the way up in Double-A last year. I mean, he's moving guys really quick. Bryce Matthews from first round 23 back, and he made it up to Triple-A. So it's hard to say. It's really going to be when he makes that stateside debut, because like he may play in the Dominican Summer League this year, and if so, he may not come over to the States. But if he starts out in the FCL this summer, then maybe maybe he's in single A at 18 next year. And then you're looking at, 3 or 4 years. So really hard to say, but I mean, you look at someone like Jordan, and I don't remember exactly how old he was when they acquired him, maybe 19. And, he debuted at, I think it was 21, 22, something like that, which is like the prime age to debut. So super excited about Alvarez for sure. And,
yeah,
and
no, I
Alvarez
mean,
and Kevin, and Jordan. I mean, I'm excited about Jordan too.
yeah. This is another Alvarez that
Yeah.
have in the mix, man. I'm definitely excited. Definitely excited to see him. Guys, y'all have any quick
I'm
thoughts on him?
excited. I'm excited to see how much homework you did, PK. I mean, that's what
Hey,
I'm
look,
excited
man.
for.
Look, I got a whole sheet here. Okay, I got a whole sheet. I set the bar high last time we did something like this where we kind of, we took a few topics each and we kind of did our thing, and I was so pumped about it because I did so much work on it. And then Chris was like, "Hey, so you kind of messed up. Now you've set the bar. No more winging it, on these episodes." So no, man, I'm pretty pumped about Kevin Alvarez. It's probably the first time I really paid attention to the international signing period, right? Because that was the name that you kept seeing, right? Was just his bat, right? And really, I kind of fell in love with his swing just watching the few clips that I saw. So to kind of get a little bit, really after going on your website without knowing and reading that, it's kind of like, man, like that's something to really be excited about, and hopefully that he can, continue to grow and project the way that he's being forecasted.
Yeah, and I'll just throw it out there. I'm pretty sure Jordan signed for $2 million as well when he signed with the Dodgers back in the day. So another Alvarez signing for $2 million. We'll see if it turns out the same.
Let's see. So let's look, man. Let's
that'd
jump
be
on.
Sweet if it does.
Boy,
Yeah.
I know that's right, wouldn't it? Good Lord. Let's jump to the next one, man. So obviously we traded Ryan Presley here recently. Sorry, let's go back. It was a Tucker trade that we got. No, hang on, am I getting confused? It's the Presley trade that we got Juan Bello. That's what we did. So I've got 20-year-old righty, single A. Last year was his first full year of minor league ball, professional ball. 4-5, 3.321 ERA. Started 22 games, 89 innings pitched, 91 Ks, 1.13 WHIP. I think right now he's at single A Fayetteville Woodpeckers. And by the way, I love minor league mascot names. Like they're probably some of the coolest ones ever. But yeah, so I mean, it's hard throwing righty, right? Is that what we're going with this guy?
Yeah, I mean, maybe mid to low 90s, but I think anytime you get a prospect back like that, like, obviously with Presley, there was some salary issues with it, and that's why they were trying to move him. But to get it wasn't strictly a salary dump. I think Melo's got some good potential, like for sure projected to be a starter. He's not, at least at this point, not a guy that's going to end up in the pen. And you saw the innings he logged last year. To do that at a really young age, I'm excited to see what he can do this year. He'll probably start off the year in Asheville, which is a hitter's paradise. So hopefully no one overreacts if he gives up some runs. But like I said with Dana Brown and how quick he's promoting guys, I would not be surprised to see him in Double-A at some point this year. And, like I said, if they're willing to trade Presley and the salary, and I was hoping maybe we'd get like one of their other top prospects. I know it's not, or that was unrealistic, but I'm excited about the return. And I do think Bello is a legit prospect. That's not just a salary dump throw in.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, when we first saw the trade come through and what we were getting back, it was kind of like, okay, it was just a young arm, right? You don't really, first glance was we really don't know what we're getting with this kid, right? Like what's the expectation for him. So, but after looking at those stats, you kind of feel a little bit better about the potential for this kid, right? So no, I mean I'm pretty excited about him. Like the Alvarez is probably I'm like really pumped about. Like I was really excited when they signed it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Bello can do here in the next few years. If his velo goes up a little bit, you know what I mean? So that'd be a great prospect to come up through the reins. So but yeah, man, those are the two topics that I had. I think we're going to Chris. Chris has Bryles. You got the next two with Cam and Melton, huh?
Yeah, I do. And I'll probably start out with Melton here because Melton's probably going to be the closest in from what I've seen, at least on joining the team. So he's 24 years old out of Medford, Oregon, played for the Beavers. And I thought one of the most interesting things when I was looking him up is at age 18, he actually played his 2019 season in the Western Canadian Professional Baseball League. I had no idea that he actually did that. But anyway, in 22, we drafted him in round 2, 64th overall. I did see that he is currently day-to-day after reporting to camp with a sore back. My only other concern was that he's not on the 40-man roster yet. But other than that, Jimmy, I'm going to let you take it away, man, because you know way more about Jacob Melton than I do.
Yeah, he's a really interesting prospect. When you talk about like Kevin Alvarez and what they talk about with his bat to ball skills and his hitting ability, Melton has some concerns with some strikeouts. When you watch him swing, he's got a lot of moving parts in his swing, but he's got like ridiculous power. At one point when I was in Asheville, they were showing the exit velocities during BP, and this is when they had Ryan Clifford on the team as well. But I think he was consistently posting like 112, 113 exit velocities, home runs during batting practice. Just really good power. Obviously a great athlete, steals a lot of bases. So he's a guy that I think can probably find 20 homers, 30 stolen bases. It's really unfortunate he's dealing with his back injury, because he was a guy that I thought maybe with a good spring, we see him do what Pena did in 22 and maybe start, open a day on the big league club, because there's that opportunity for him right there in the outfield. But good prospect. He struggled a little bit last year in AAA, but I think his OPS was still in the mid 700s. Nothing phenomenal, but he didn't completely fall to the competition in AAA. So I think he ended up with maybe 15 homers, 30 stolen bases in limited games, but I still think he's a really good prospect. Excited to see what he can do. I hope this back injury that he's dealing with, back soreness, hopefully it goes away soon, because I really thought this was going to be a huge spring for him. And if he performs, I think the opportunity to take maybe left or even right field is there for him.
Do you think he's got an opportunity to make the 40-man roster coming out of spring training?
I don't think they'll put him on there until they have the absolute need to. He wasn't eligible for the Rule 5 draft because he hasn't been in I think he would be this next coming December. So I don't think they'll put him there until they absolutely have to, which would be when they call him up or when he's eligible for the Rule 5 draft. But if things go as planned, as he would see it, or as any of us would see it, Melton should make his debut at some point this year. Injuries are going to happen. Hopefully hopefully he comes up because he's red hot and we can't keep him down, and not necessarily injuries. But there's going to be an opportunity for probably not just him, but for other guys as well to get that chance. We saw how many guys they shuffled up and down from AAA last year, even with DeZenzo and Whitcomb and stuff. So at that point, yeah, he'll get added to the 40-man roster.
Awesome. Yeah, we got to see him at Sugarland last year, and that dude just looks absolutely electric. So the day he actually makes it onto the squad, we're all going to be excited for that.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, phenomenal athlete, and like when you see how he's built and how he runs, I mean, he's just really, really good athlete. So will he be a tier 1 player when he makes it up? I'm not sure about that, but if he can come up and hit 250 with 20 homers and 30 stolen bases and give you decent defense, like you'll take that all day long.
Absolutely. And just to switch gears real quick, I did want to talk about Cam Smith, who was probably one of the key pieces that we got back in the Kyle Tucker trade with the Cubs. Cam Smith, obviously not the golfer out of Australia, but the third baseman of the future.
Yeah.
I know. I was joking around about that today. I was like, should I just introduce him?
I thought you should have led with
Sydney,
that.
Australia. Yeah.
Turn this into.
See, this is why we can't have nice things.
Turn this into a live
man.
golf podcast.
But anyway, key piece from our Kyle Tucker trade, if you want to say that, because honestly, I think he's going to be our third baseman of the future. He's young. He's 21 years old, 6'3", 224. I mean, this kid looks like he can rake. He played college at, where was that? It was Florida State, excuse me. Yeah. And then was out of Wellington, Florida in high school. So, I mean, honestly, I will be upfront. I don't know that much about him other than he's young and he is now our top prospect. But other than that, I mean, please educate us.
Yeah, I mean, that's an elite level return for Tucker. And I know it always hurts, dealing with a star like that. But to get a guy like Isak Paredes, Hayden Wisniewski, who's probably going to be our 5th starter, and then a prospect like Smith, I mean, that's a really good return. Baseball Prospectus had him as the number 20 prospect in baseball. You mentioned last year, 14th overall pick. And some guys come in and they struggle right away. And I think if you go look at some of those top picks, and was the guy out of Georgia, the outfielder, I think his name was Charlie Condon, if I'm saying it right, but go look at some of those top picks and they struggle. That was not the case for Cam Smith. He made it up to AA, hit 313 in 32 games, 7 homers. And And man, you talk about he's built like everything you've seen so far this spring on social media is like, well, I mean, Dana Brown even said it, he's an aircraft carrier in terms of potentially carrying a franchise. But I think Chandler Rome and McTaggart have just kind of showed just how, they showed pictures and just lauded at his size, 6'3", 225, just built really well, still really young, still 21, which is insane, given that size. But yeah, good power, good athlete. I know he mentioned that they had him out in the outfield a little bit, but I think that's strictly just hey, if we have a need in outfield more than we need him at third base, then maybe he goes and plays outfield. I think and I think it's the same thing with Bryce Matthews we saw last year, kind of moving around. Like, just hit the ball and we'll find you a place. We're going to find you a place in the field. I think they had him in right field a little bit early in the winter camp right after the trade. So we'll see the spring where he's going to play at. I mean, I think it's going to be a mixture of both. And he'll probably, in the minors, he'll probably start at third base. But I think they'll try to get that versatility going, because if you have Paredes and he's playing all right, but you got a hole in the outfield and Smith is hitting and is ready to come up, they're going to want to get him up. But yeah, phenomenal prospect, good return, good hitter. He doesn't strike out a lot, good power, and 21 years old, still has plenty of potential. And yeah, I'm super excited about it. We haven't had especially a hitting prospect of that level in quite some time.
So obviously, I know we've got some holes in the outfield, currently that they're trying to fill, and they're, doing some things in the minor leagues, trying to hopefully prepare, just like you were saying, to get some of these guys up as a possibility if we do need them. But realistically, for Cam Smith, I mean, I've seen him as a third baseman. What do you see him like as far as like possibly cracking the squad and actually coming up, even if it's just for a cup of coffee?
Yeah, I mean, I think ideally, he says he's a third baseman. He said he played shortstop his whole life, moved to third base at Florida State. He's always been an infielder. But, I mean, like you say, he's 21 years old. He's 6'3", 224. So, like, how much more weight can he even put on and still play at third base? Not to say that he's going to grow out of it like for bad habits, but, if he adds more muscle, maybe he is a better fit in right field. So I haven't seen him in the outfield at all, but everything that we've seen is he's a good athlete. I think he's going to be able to take it. And I think it'll be a matter of where do we have the need when his bat is ready. I think that's really where it comes down. If his bat's ready and we have a need at, say, McCormick's not hitting the ball in right field and Smith is ready, I think we see him there. If something happens at third base and we need him on the infield, I think you see him there. But I think that's why they're kind of moving him around, is they know that his bat's going to be his calling card, and they want to get him on the roster one way or another.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, thanks for the insight on all those. Chris, what you got?
All right, so I'm going to talk about our favorite subject here in Juicebox land, and that's going to be the outfield. And I say that because we are tired of talking about the outfield. I know we between us three, we've talked about it. My stance has always been, we kind of know what we have in Jake Myers, as far as that he's a fantastic defender, offensively, not so much. I mean, I think everybody who still is somewhat high on him is still expecting him to have this breakout season. My suggestion has always been, why can't we just hand the reins over to Pedro Leon? I know we saw him for a little bit last year. Kind of my thing was that I felt like he needed more consistent at bats. So I guess my question is, from your perspective, what should we kind of expect to see for Pedro Leon for 2025?
I'll be interested to see if he gets an opportunity. I kind of compare it to maybe Teoscar Hernandez. He came up early on and had some like big time struggles, struck out a ton. He ended up being a toss in on that Francisco Liriano deal to Toronto. And then the guy went on to be a pretty productive player.
Yeah.
And I think just signed back with the Dodgers, I believe. Was it the Dodgers I think he signed back with? But
Yeah.
anyways, he struggled early on and he didn't get those consistent at bats. He went to a bad team in Toronto, got the bats, and ended up being a good player. So I kind of see Leon like that. Like, I don't know if he's going to be able to succeed if he's only getting in a game every now and then. And, the issue with Jake Myers is, man, like you said, he's phenomenal defensively. And the Astros won World Series with a really good defensive center fielder in Jake Marisnik, and were very successful with him. The difference then is you had a stacked lineup where you were getting offensive production from pretty much the other 8, and you were okay to stick him at number 9. And if he hit 220 and had a couple of homers, you were fine with it. Well, this current lineup, we don't have that depth. So we need our outfielders to hit a little bit more. And unfortunately, he hasn't done that. if he can be just league average with the bat, I mean, the guy's a really, really good player because he's so good defensively. I don't know if Leon is at that level, maybe defensively. Athletically, he is. But Myers' routes and everything and his jumps are just so freaking good out there. I'd love to see Leon get a chance, but I just feel like given his current skill set, his long-term opportunity would probably come if a trade happened. Now, that's not to say that if he has a really good spring, I talked about Melton, but if Leon goes out and has a really good spring and makes a major league roster, I don't think they're sold on the outfield lineup right now. They can pencil in maybe Altuve in left and Myers in center and McCormick in right, but if people are hitting, they'll find ways to get them in. And Leon's on the 40-man roster. He provides some good bench tools with his speed and his power. I do think he needs a nice long period of play to kind of really evaluate what he's going to do at the major league level.
No, I mean, I definitely agree. And real quick before I get into my next question, so I'm assuming this Altuve in left field is definitely going to be a thing. I thought that was just going to be trying to get Bregman here.
It sure looks
Is
like
that really happening?
Yeah, I mean they're he's with the outfielders in spring training. I heard the initial lineup in spring was Paredes at third, Pena at shortstop, Dubon at second, and Walker at first, which by the way is a really, really good infield, especially defensively. But I was looking at some numbers and man, he was not good defensively, last year at second base. I think he was maybe like the second worst qualified second baseman in terms of outs above average. He was like -8. And I think even Dubon in his limited time was like a +2. So I think part of it is it makes sense if you brought in Bregman, he would go out there. But also if he can handle left field and not be a complete dud defensively, a lot of teams have hidden guys out in left field. Chase some fly balls down. And then you put a guy like Dubon who can play second base at a good level. You probably take that. So it's crazy. There's no way in heck, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, we would imagine that Altuve would be playing left field. But here we are. But the Astros have a better idea on it than we do. I think it's going to be entertaining either way. So we'll see. I mean, he's probably going to take some rough routes at times, but if he's just like with Myers' bat, right? If Altuve can provide us just average defense in left field, and then Dubon's doing his thing at second, you're probably better off. Because the other option is, I mean, I guess you could put Dubon in left and then Altuve at second, but I'm thinking that with that, they think that the swapping them is going to give you the better defensive production.
Chris, by the way, is an absolute huge fan of Mauricio Dubon. Like, he loves him, and he's so pumped about this move. And I say that tongue in cheek because it's we're not going to be that. We're not going to be negative. We'll do that offline.
Yeah, I sense some sarcasm there, but
but no, I honestly didn't know. And we'll get back to Chris real quick. You touched.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
You touched on his outs above replacement, right? Like, I didn't realize how bad Altuve scored last year until here recently, and I saw the same number. It was like a -8, -9.
Yeah,
and I honestly didn't realize that. But I talked to Chris earlier today about this, this left field thing, and because this thing is starting to catch traction, right?
Yeah.
And I think I still have a little bit of COVID year playoffs where all of a sudden you forgot how to throw from second to first, so every now and again, you look at him throw and it's like, oh shoot, is he gonna six hop it to first or whatever? So
yeah, I guess the is there, right? Because if he's hitting the cutoff man maybe being Pena has some room to go left or right to catch the ball, so maybe his arm even plays a little bit better in left field than it does at second. But yeah, when you bring that up, those COVID years, the whips that he had, that's not good. But yeah, he fell off a cliff. He was a Gold Glover at second base, not maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
and now he's getting moved off the position, which is it's unfortunate, but he's a team player. He's not doing the Devers thing in Boston, saying no, that's his position. He's not moving. He's a team player. He's going to go out there, and if he can continue hitting like he has in his career and be an average left fielder, like, we're in a good spot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
all right, Chris.
And second base definitely got a lot more interesting with them bringing on Brendan Rodgers as well.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting sign. Minor league deal. Does he make the team? Does he just accept his assignment to AAA if he doesn't make the team? But he's a good defender as well, and hasn't posted like phenomenal offensive numbers, but is not really terrible either. So that's an interesting sign for me. I'm curious to see how he does in spring and if he actually gets a chance to make the big league club out of spring training.
Yeah, I mean, I like the signing. It's one of those. I mean, I know that recently we've got a lot of the high risk, or high reward, low risk kind of signings, and I would say out of the handful of the ones we've seen, the Brendan Rodgers one is the one I'm like really excited about. Um, but yeah, I mean, like it. I mean, I did look at his splits as far as away from cores, and that
Yeah.
kind of
But
kind
zero,
of
like you said,
lets
it's
him
zero
behind.
risk. You know, if he hits
Yeah,
and plays well, then it's a great find. If he doesn't, it was a minor league deal. There's not much. There's really, I mean, there's no risk with it at all. You know, so I like bringing in more depth like that. One, you never know if you're going to need it, but two, you know, sometimes guys find find it, and you know, late deal like this, and maybe he has a good year, and then he gets him another deal afterwards. But I'm with you. Yeah, great high risk, low risk, high reward potential move.
yeah. So my next question is now, with the Tucker trade and kind of towards the end of last year, we started hearing these handful of names coming from AAA, names like Bryce Matthews, Jacob Melton, the newest one, Colton Gordon, Cam Smith. So outside of Ryan Gusto as well, outside of those handful of names that we're starting to hear a lot more about as Astros fans, are there any sleeper prospects that maybe we're not hearing as much about coming into camp this year that could really kind of like make things interesting if they have a really good camp?
In terms of the guys that have been invited to camp, you know, most of them are well known, like you mentioned, the Matthews, the Melton. I think the pitchers are going to be interesting when you look at, you know, Colton Gordon, AJ Blueball, Gusto, because you know the Astros are going to have that need at fifth starter, and Wesneski had some good numbers. I'm, you know, hoping he can grab that fifth starter spot, but you're going to need more than 5 throughout the season. So those guys are going to be fun to watch. You know, they all pitched really well in AAA last year, which helped the, you know, Space Cowboys win the AAA national championship. But in terms of guys that were maybe, I'll throw a reliever out there, Logan Van Wy,
Yeah,
really good numbers in AAA, a lot of strikeouts, you know, good ERA, and you know, walks could maybe be a little bit of a concern for him, but like super deceptive delivery, mid 90s. He's a guy that I could see maybe get some run in the bullpen, and I mean, I'm optimistic in general, but I'm pretty optimistic about our bullpen. When you look, I mean, you got Abreu and Hader in the back, but then you got a nice mix in the middle of, you know, Caleb Ort, Forrest Whitley, maybe a guy like Van Wy that I think are ready to take a bigger role. And so if I had to go in terms of who's in spring now that maybe people don't know about, I'd throw him out there. But if you're asking about just the system in general, I would have a different answer.
I got you. All right, well then just give us one name out of the system in general.
All right.
Just one name.
Well, two
let's go
popped in my head. As you were asking that, I'm thinking two popped in my head. One, Chase Jaworski, 5th round pick back in 2023 out of Colorado. He was a high school pick. So 19 years old last year in Fayetteville. And he's kind of a spark plug guy, steals a lot of bases, gets hit by a lot of pitches, lefty hitter, righty thrower, good speed. He's kind of like, you know, you watch baseball back in the 2000s, you see those shortstops, those second basemen that like they steal bases, they get on base, but they don't hit for a ton of power. Like that's Jaworski right there. So super excited about him. And then Kenny Gomez, that was another international signing they had a few years ago, who at 19 had a pretty good year last year, made it up to high A. So he'll be 20 this year, but I'm really excited to see what he can do. Like I mentioned, Asheville and high A is a hitter's park. So he'll be starting out there. Those are two guys that are kind of lower in the system that were teenagers last year that I think have a lot of potential and could potentially break out this year.
I got a couple of, I got two that now that we're talking about just, you know, stuff that we didn't talk about earlier. What do you think about Walker Yannick? That's Walker Yannick, the catcher. He's a catcher, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the guy I think he's a linebacker for the University of Oregon.
Yeah, well, and he's going back to Oregon, I guess. So I'm curious to see how that all works out. I don't know if the contract still works, because I know he was supposed to join after the season, and then he announced that he's going back. So I don't know. It'd have been really fun to watch him. But yeah, Yannick, the key on him is everyone talked about how good he was defensively, and we know how important defense is at catcher. Obviously, he's going to have to hit a little bit to make his way up, but you know, he's a first-round pick, and we saw the struggles he had. And then you compare him to a guy like Cam Smith, who, you know, did great in his first minor league stint. But I wouldn't put too much weight in it. You know, going from Sam Houston State to high A, the Astros were aggressive with them. This will be a big year for him. See if the back can be legit. But you know, we've seen plenty of backup catchers that were really good defenders that maybe didn't hit a lot. Like, if you can play defense behind the plate, like, you're going to find a major league role if you're a good defender. And I know as a first round pick, we want more out of him. But that's the story on him. Great arm, great defensively, and we just got to hope the bat is you know, can play. But we'll get a good look at him this year.
Cool. Guys, you got anything?
I mean, the only question I would kind of have about, you mentioned how, you kind of like the bullpen. My question is, are they looking at somebody that can kind of solve that long reliever position? Because I know the big thing that they ran into last season was guys being overused. I don't know. I mean, I would assume that might have, contributed to guys kind of like get hurt towards the end of the season. I mean, I know for me, my thing would be when McCullers comes back, he would kind of fill that 2 to 3 in and out of the bullpen. Is there any guy that they're kind of looking at to kind of solve that position of long reliever?
I think what's interesting about that, and we can't project it because the whole injury thing is really it's an unknown at this point. But I just saw Jeremy Branham from 97.5 had shared that they expect Garcia and McCullers back hopefully by like the end of April or May. And I mean, and if they come back and they're healthy, like that's a game changer. I mean, you're talking about, we know what McCullers did. Garcia was a really good pitcher. I mean, you get those two guys back, and then maybe you're pushing Wesneski back into that long reliever role. But I think if they're not healthy, then I think you're looking at the guys we mentioned with Blue Ball, Colton Gordon, and Ryan Gusto. Those guys maybe getting that opportunity to start some games, pitch in relief. But if you get a McCullers or even a Garcia back, and it bumps one of those other guys in the pen, that's huge. I mean, that's like, if they're back to the caliber they were before them, that's like two like key free agent signings. You didn't have them last year, and you're adding them to a team this year. That would be huge. That'd be huge.
Nice. Well, look, man, we got I don't know, about 2-3 minutes left on this thing. We got a couple questions here in the comments, and then we're gonna get out. We're gonna get off this thing. But look, Season's asked, what's the move to replace Bregman? Look, Paredes is at third, right? I mean, that's the move. That's the move. Paredes at third.
Yep.
We talked about it a lot. There was a small to slim chance, even though Hearts wanted it, but we know the deal. There, and if you're looking at social media, we were going to talk about it a little bit tonight, but thankfully we can push that to the next one. But you see the shit show that's going on in Boston with Devers. It's actually pretty comical. But yeah, so Isaac Paredes is the move. Yeah. We got him.
And I want to throw this out there on those two guys. I don't have the numbers in front of me, so they may not be exact. But when you compare like Fangraphs projections, and I know they're only projections, but Paredes was really good 2 years ago in Tampa. Was good last year until the trade, and he went to Wrigley Field and really struggled. I think we're going to see the good Paredes this year. I'm like I mentioned, I'm always optimistic, but you get the good Paredes, and what he did his last 2 years in Tampa was better than what Alex Bregman was given, or right on caliber offensively. The Fangraphs projection has him hitting, I think, 24 homers and maybe like a 120 weighted runs created plus, 3.9 WAR, and I think they got Bregman at like 21 homers, 117 weight, and like 3.2 WAR or something. So like on their projections, they have Paredes being an upgrade to Bregman. So we'll see if that actually plays out. But people like to look at batting average. I know that's an old school stat, so he doesn't hit for a high average, but he has homers. He gets on base. I don't think there's going to be this huge drop off. Now, defensively, like obviously Bregman was phenomenal.
Yeah, freaking vacuum.
That's something that maybe we see a little bit, but I'm also interested to see what the Astros, coaches can do with Paredes and try to improve him there. But I don't want to say people are hating on the Paredes, move or him as a player. Obviously, people have the emotional ties to Bregman based on the amount of time he was here, the 2 championships and everything. But just if you took the names off and someone showed you their stats the last 2 years and showed you what they're projected for this year, you would probably take Paredes.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially after looking at the overlays. I mean, you saw the overlays from what would have been a homer last year for him compared to this year. And yeah, I got super excited when I saw that.
For sure.
Yeah. So, Chris, you got anything on that? Are you done talking about Bregman, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, I'm Paredes, Team Paredes. There you go.
Team Paredes. All right. Then the last question, of course, is from one of our guys, Julian. Is Altuve officially playing the outfield? Yeah, it kind of looks that way. I did see something on Twitter that the Astros actually approached Altuve at the end of last season about a possible move, about him possibly moving. Of course, that's going in. Yeah, that was kind of shocking, but it kind of made sense because you're going into what are we going to do with Bregman? So clearly there was some kind of talks about Bregman maybe moving to second or wanting to, whatever the case is. But yeah, man, it looks like Altuve is gonna at least hold it down for a little bit. Maybe he's gonna hold it down at home because it'd be a little bit easier to to cover ground out at Dyken Park now. Than playing in some of these bigger parks that have big left field. So looks like he's gonna do it. I mean, we talked about it earlier. His decline his defense is diminished, the last few years there at second base. So it'll be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see. So, but like I said, I'm pretty pumped about this season coming up, man. I'm super excited about the fact that the Astros got younger, right? We got Cam Smith coming, over from Chicago. The two guys that we talked about tonight with Alvarez and Bello, I know that's a few years away, right? But we have Melton, Bryce Matthews, Cam Smith. And then the pitchers that we discussed as well. So the Astros got a little bit younger. I'm just interested to see it. I mean, I'm actually really excited to get this thing kicked off. I mean, first game is in 2 days, right? So we're all gonna be plugged in, into that. So, man, Jimmy, I am super pumped that you came on, dude. This was a lot of fun, guys. Do you have anything else for him?
No, man. I mean, like I said, I'm just super excited that you took the time out to come hang out with us for an episode. And I mean, I would say on behalf of us, anytime you want to come back, man, just let us know.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
you're more than welcome, man.
Maybe we'll see you out at Constellation. I don't know how often you get out there, but
at least a handful of times a year for sure.
Okay, I know Chris. That's Chris's. Hey, look, that's the go-to, and so I know he's going to drive me to a few games this season. I need to go to more. I mean, it's so convenient to go there
for sure.
But man, thanks again, Jimmy, for coming on. Everybody, make sure you follow this guy on X at Astros Future. I think you also have a website. You can also go to, what's your website address?
Just astrosfuture.com.
Scroll down to the bottom, subscribe to his email list. Great follow, great insight. Jimmy, thanks again for joining us.
Yep, appreciate it.
I'm PK. That's Chris. That's Bryles. And this is Jimmy. And you're listening to the Juice Box Heroes podcast.